Hi, and welcome to the Seafood Business Accelerator Innovation Plan Canvas webinar series. I'm Deborah Hellback, your host, and with me today is Stacey Harper, a business system expert from MNP. As you know, the goal of the Seafood Business Accelerator is to help you capture more value for your harvests. This is the 6th webinar in a 10-webinar series, and today we're going to talk about business systems. We'll start off with an introduction from Stacey. I'll send it over to you, Stacey.
Hello, all. I'm Stacey Harper. I'm the Onboarding Manager for BC here at MNP LLP. And part of my role is to support local food producers. This is very important to me. I think you guys are the backbone of our local economy and are some of the most fun clients to work with some amazing and innovative plans. I work in MNP for ease. My focus is on cloud accounting generally and accounting systems and software overall. My priority here in the Vancouver Island region is in supporting seafood harvesters and aquaculture. Yeah, so I'm really excited to share with you all some of the new features and business systems you can be using in your innovation plan.
That's great, Stacey. And I'll just mention that Stacey and I got to know each other a couple of years ago, I guess, when we were doing communications at Royal Roads University. So in addition to food, we also have a real commonality in communications. So we believe, that communications is really, really important. And I'll mention as well that today Stacey is sitting in Cumberland and I am in Victoria. So, just further adding to this theme that we've had in this webinar series, that the world is your oyster and you can work with people pretty much anywhere in the world. And Stacey, just so you know, webinar 3 on funding was done with Noortje in the Netherlands. So,
wow.
Yeah, so, there's no borders anymore.
It's true.
We can access services from anywhere. So Stacey, as a business advisor and someone who might be hired to help a seafood startup company set up and maintain their financial records, how does a seafood business accelerator and specifically the innovation plan help them?
Well, I think it can be incredibly helpful in that new clients and new entrepreneurs will have their ideas fleshed out, have some idea of the kinds of information they would need to share with their accounting professional or bookkeeping service. It would allow them to have thought about supply chain, the types of products and price points that they would need to be able to achieve a good margin between their sales and their costs for inputs. These are all things that you want to come with some concept when you're discussing with a professional. It makes it much easier and, of course, much more cost effective if you have that plan in place. And then you can be an active part of your team in directing how your business plan and your business system should be set up to work. I think it's also really important in choosing an appropriate business system, a software that you're going to use to track all of your finances, if you know the kinds of inputs and information that are required. I often argue that bookkeeping always seems to be the last thing on people's books when they're discussing their new product. But I cannot stress enough how important it is. It is really the foundation that all good businesses stand on. It's the story that you tell about your business, of how it works, of what the inputs are, and your ability to understand and guide your growth. I think it's always really key to have a solid financial plan, a solid accounting software, and a really good idea of the workflow that's going to be required to track your costs, inputs, and sales.
Amazing, Stacey. And I did not script that. We didn't script that. She just off the top of her head. And I'm going to mention that having business systems, good, solid business systems has come up in just about every one of the segments that we've talked about. Right? You need to have that. It should not be the last thing you think about. It should be the first.
Oh, absolutely. It's the foundation everything stands on.
Yeah, exactly. So that's a great introduction. I think you can jump into your presentation now, Stacey, and thank you very much. It's great to see you.
Okay, so business systems for the SBA Innovation Plan. It's really great to be able to help people with an innovation plan. And I think it's been very clever of the SBA to set up a real discussion, as this really is the foundation in which all great businesses stand on. Having a good concept of the business systems you want to use is really key to success. So this is a image that will show you the business system section on your innovation plan canvas. I would be recording any notes you have from this presentation in this area. This can be really helpful in future when you're looking to discuss this with your accounting professional. So I think one of the key elements we want to talk about here is the value of good records and business systems. With risk of repeating myself, it really is that foundation. You want to be able to choose an easy software that will enable you to work well with your workflow, that will be able to track the items and inputs that you're looking for. When choosing a good business system and software, you want to make sure that it's something that you have the appropriate training for, that you have staff in place to enable to use, or you've outsourced or found a bookkeeper that's able to use. You want to think about things like inventory tracking, whether or not it has a good ability to track the kinds of sales that you're producing, whether that be e-commerce through a website or through an e-commerce tool like Shopify or Amazon or another tool that you would be selling through or from. You want to make sure that you can track all of your expenses in and out, that has a good accounts payable and accounts receivable system, and that you understand the kinds of financial reports that are being produced and the kinds of financial reports that your accountant or advisor recommends. It's very key that you choose this system carefully. You want to think about things like remote access. If you're working in a remote or northern region of Vancouver Island, for example, you want to be able to collaborate with your bookkeeper if they're located in a larger center, like Victoria, Vancouver, or even Nanaimo, or here with me in Courtenay. You want to make sure that you can share and have access to live data, and that you can use that information to do things like seek investment, speak to a banker, produce any of your tax forms for all your tax obligations, for your corporate year end, or your personal taxes as they may be. It's a very, very valuable and important thing to have a solid concept of how you're going to record your financial transactions.
No, you covered it all, Stacey. That's great.
Okay, so again, and one of the things you're thinking about in your business systems, you want to think about whether you're going to operate as either a proprietorship or an incorporation. A proprietor has a business schedule on their tax return. We call it a T2125. It's usually not sufficient for major businesses, loans, or investments. A sole proprietor has control over all business decisions, but is also personally responsible for any debt, risk, and liability. So this is an important consideration about whether you're going to move forward as just a proprietor or whether you want to incorporate the company as its own identity. A proprietorship is often a place where we see clients do their first step. It's not that we don't recommend this, it's just something that you have to be conscious in thinking about.
Yeah.
Both in a proprietorship and incorporation have the same bookkeeping needs and responsibilities. You would use the same types of software. It's really in regards to the kinds of tax forms and filings that you would be filing with the government. For example, the proprietor has the T2125, which is on your personal tax return. A incorporation would file a separate tax return for itself as an entity called a T2. And there's often some differences, or I would say you can expect differences in the cost for preparation. Of course, an incorporated T2 will be much more expensive than that of a T2125. Right. However, we do find that incorporating has other benefits, like a clear structure for reporting, the fact that it's its own legal entity, and that it has verified financial statements that lenders place more importance upon.
Right, right. And Stacey, what about an Indigenous organization? Are there any special considerations?
Yes, Indigenous organizations often have significant differences in things like tax, etc. They also have the ability to apply for certain kinds of benefits in granting. This could require some specific reports. You want to be very careful to structure that into both your bookkeeping and in your reporting for your tax at year end. A really great resource is the Indigenous Small Business Resources. It's also really important to have this initial discussion with your accounting professional. Any good CPA will sit down and talk to you about the implications, and they are very adept in responding to those kinds of questions.
Okay, no, that sounds good. Thank you, Stacey.
I think another really key element in structuring your business system and planning and making those choices about the software, the kinds of bookkeeper or the team that you're going to engage to work with your business, is to think about how you would imagine your operations. Again, what kind of reports does your accountant advise you review regularly? And when she or she discussed that with you, she is going to think about things like, what do you care about? What do you want to track? Do you want to think about where you're sourcing the seafood from, the inputs? She's going to ask you things like, do you want to see whether this product sells better than another? You have to really think about how you want to engage with your market, what those inputs might be, and the kinds of information you're going to need to make good decisions. Very similarly with your sales. What is your sales structure? Are you going to sell over the web? Is it a direct to consumer? Do you imagine yourself selling business to business directly to a grocery store or another purveyor, for example? You want to think about what that structure is going to look like. Another element we think about is payroll and employees. Will you have employees? Do you understand the obligations and responsibilities of being an employer? The kinds of associated payroll expenses and costs. You would be responsible for matching an employee's CPP and 1.4 times their EI, for example. There are things like medical benefits, other elements that can make you attractive or unattractive as an employer. And whether or not you'd be able to sustain their employment even when there was low dips and ebbs in the company. So these are important considerations. You have to have a very stable sales and income to be enabled to support an employee structure. If you're working yourself, you have to think about, how will you pay yourself? Are you going to put yourself into payroll so you can take advantage of the CPP? I mean, we all want to max out our CPP to be prepared for retirement in the future. So this is an important consideration. Or will you simply take dividends if you happen to be a corporation? What you do is you draw down on your shareholder loan, and then this is a loan that you will have to repay to your incorporation. I always think about an incorporation as being kind of like a mean friend you owe money to. It's an entity all of itself. So it's important to understand your business operations. If you're working as a proprietor, you are personally responsible for all activity. If you're operating as an incorporation, it is an entity. I think about incorporated or corps. It's a body unto itself that you would owe money back and forth between. So these are really key elements in understanding how your operations will work and how your business systems and your responsibilities will flow from that.
Excellent. Very, very good, Stacey. Thank you.
So I think the other element I want to bring up, just because I work so much in the cloud and because we often in the seafood industry have clients who are working remote or in remote areas of the coast here, where there isn't always access to the kinds of accounting support that you can find in the bigger centers. One of the boons of cloud accounting is that it enables you to have those relationships with larger organizations or accounting professionals, regardless of where you're located. Right. So some of the modern technology and accounting software can be quite affordable for seafood harvesters and producers. So I always think about it in terms of old school versus new school. So I would characterize old school as being desktop software that requires you to track individual pieces of paper and manually enter them to a system. In order to share with a bookkeeper, you would need to be able to connect with them in person or scan all of the documents and send them to them via email, for example, or a tool like Dropbox. But it's really paper-based and desktop-based. The new school of bookkeeping is really looking to leverage technologies that will allow you to share information via the cloud. So being able to snap pictures of expenses or have them scanned easily, or to have a piece of software that you can share live over the net with your accounting professional. I'll go over a couple of some common desktop softwares that we see used very often. Sage 50 is usually a good choice, as is QuickBooks Desktop. Again, these would be products in which you would have to be tracking information via paper-based. There are some tools involved in both where you could link your bank accounts directly to the systems to track. There is some ability to stash information. So we mean actually connecting a copy, like an image of your receipts to transactions for tracking later. We always have to be aware that CRA occasionally likes to audit things like GST or PST returns, and we often may be called upon to prove the data that we've built our financial statements on. So one of the key elements in understanding what kind of software you'll choose is how you're going to track and store the data that you've built your financial reports on.
So CRA is the Canada Revenue Agency, right?
Yes, CRA is the Canada Revenue Agency, and this would be the body that you would be filing your T2125 if on a personal tax return, or your corporate T2 if a corporate tax return. And again, the accountant's always going to be looking for you to support the data that's on your profit and loss statement. So a record of all your sales and the corresponding deposits to your bank, and a record of all of your expenses, and again, the corresponding exit from your bank account and how they were paid. So this is what we want to track. It's very important that we are accurate in tracking those. And so tools like this can really help that to move along. Any accounting professional, bookkeeper, or a CPA will be familiar with both of these products. And they're very common and affordable entry-level desktop products for a seafood business to use. They also have built-in payroll applications, which should you have employees that you'd be able to easily produce the payroll and understand your tax obligations. Because again, payroll will have a monthly filing that you will have to do for the source deductions, the CPP and EI withhold that you would have on those transactions. So these are very good all-in-one tools for tracking those things. So I think another place where I think it takes some very good consideration here is to think about some of the entry-level cloud platforms, QBO and Xero. These have all the power of the desktop applications, the same payroll ability, the ability to connect with bank accounts and produce the kinds of financials, but they also offer some additional tools which can be very useful if you're working remote. So it's the automation. You can automate a lot of your processes. We can connect QBO and Xero directly to a web sales source, for example.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you can easily import Excel. So there's all that automation and tool. You have that easy remote access. It's available anywhere there's Wi-Fi. So if you had a question from the bank and you're on your mobile device, you'd be able to easily access information and share it. You can share a live file with your accountant or a bookkeeper like myself to be able to have updated information live. You can make changes in real time. And then there's that, often we find with clients, people don't have a clear picture of where their book's at until the end of the year after an accountant's been through and been able to prepare documentation. Cloud platforms allow your accountant or your bookkeeper to log in at a quarterly position and offer you advisory, be able to look at where you're standing throughout the year rather than at the end after a tax return has been prepared.
Yeah.
So I think another thing that is really important to think about is how much time do you actually have to prepare your bookkeeping? This is a skill that takes a certain amount of education and understanding. It's not easy to jump into an accounting role. It isn't as simple as being able to post some sales and post some expenses. I think it's really important to think about outsourcing. You want to be able to focus on building your business and having the good advisory that you need. Have someone be able to tell you where you should be investing your time, what products are working better than others, whether or not you've got too much investment going forward in how you're building your product. So another option is thinking about outsourcing. Could it be a good cost saving to engage a third-party bookkeeper to work with your information? There's often some platforms like receipt capture, etc., which you can share your information. You can be guaranteed of competence. You can have a clear agreement on what your bookkeeping will cost. It can often offer you the kinds of advisory you need to scale your business or move forward. And there can be significant cost savings. People often think that bookkeeping is something that they or their partner can do. And then when they get into the issues of actually filing their tax return, seeking a loan agreement with the bank, or even just trying to make good managerial decisions about their business and how to invest, they find themselves at a bit of a loss. It's important to think about that as an ongoing cost and being prepared for that and having the appropriate kinds of support engaged right from the get-go.
Yeah, I think another way to think about outsourcing as well, it's like contracting a portion of running your business to another organization to do that. However, you still have to know what they're doing, and there has to be a considerable amount of trust as well, and a good relationship that that what they're doing on your behalf is being done in good faith. And so outsourcing doesn't just happen with accounting and bookkeeping. It also happens like there's whole sales departments. There's actually one of our experts, grant writing expert, she contracted to a company to look for grants and write those grants for that company. So it works very well, but it's based on trust, I think is the most important thing. Would you say that, Stacey?
Absolutely. I really advise looking to an accountant who understands your industry. The one place that I can speak to directly is that sort of outsourcing of the bookkeeping and financial end of your work, but also, a sales team or even suppliers. Be sure of who you're working with. Make sure you have solid agreements in place that is understood how and when things will be paid, delivered, etc. Making sure that there's competence there. I think trust is a very important thing. I think a relationship with an accounting or bookkeeping professional is a key relationship for managing your business. And you want to make sure you have someone who understands you, understands what you're doing, what you're after, and that you have a good, solid relationship, that you trust them, that you feel that they're working in your best interests. I always advise working with an accounting professional who's familiar in agriculture, that understands the kind of tax obligations and stresses there are in your industry and can advise you effectively. I think that would be my initial question when I was meeting with a bookkeeper or accountant is, what do you know about the kinds of products that I'm producing? What do you know about my industry? What are your ideas of how you think I can move my business forward? And see what their answers are and see how you feel and whether you feel like this is a relationship you can move forward with.
So would you do that, Stacey, before or after you show them your wonderful innovation plan canvas that demonstrates to them that you've done your homework,
I would do that before and during.
Yeah.
I would have that part of your ongoing conversation.
Yeah.
I think a good accountant should be able to explain to you what value they're going to bring to the table. I mean, ultimately, they work for you.
Yeah. Well, and again, I mean, with the innovation plan canvas is gonna make that initial orientation much faster, right?
Of course.
Because and we saw that when our showcase, we had Peter from MNP was looking at people's innovation plans, and it was like immediate. He could say, this is who you need to talk to, and this is the information source that you need to go to move to the next level. It was immediate, like in less than 5 minutes, he was able to assess what was being done and how to help.
Yeah, absolutely. There's all kinds of resources out there. Import export is an area in which you'd want someone to have some expertise if that's part of your plan. Also looking to a firm. I mean, of course, I'm going to tout MNP, but you want to have a firm that has exterior resources. If you have a particular accountant who's familiar with the pressures on fisheries, you want to make sure that they would be able to reach out to someone else who may have a particular expertise in Indigenous tax filings or grants for etc. or networks for selling fish product, those kinds of things. You want to make sure that you're choosing a CPA with a wide range of connections.
And CPA is?
Oh, a certified professional accountant. I mean, maybe I should highlight this as being very important. I think that you should always be looking to a certified professional accountant to be filing your tax forms and obligations. That's that assurance of that outsourcing of competence and responsibility and a concrete agreement on deliverables. These are places when people often make errors. You really want to have a certified professional filing your tax forms. So in working with that accounting professional, you've chosen someone who understands your industry, is certified, who understands your goals, has built a structure and helped you to choose a good software and business system moving forward. I wanted to talk a little bit about the digital stack. I think that these are really key tools. I'm highlighting the cloud-based tools here because we often find this is a choice for seafood producers because of the remote nature of the work and where it happens. But a digital stack enables clients to directly collaborate with their accounting professional. So here is an example of a good stack that we see often used. It's no longer really about that historical bookkeeping. As I said, you want multiple points of contacts during the year. You don't want to be just talking to your accounting or bookkeeping professional at year end. You want to have a good, solid understanding, at the very least, at a quarterly basis with your accounting professional. So the stack that we recommend is Dext, which is a tool where you can scan, email forward, or snap with a mobile picture any of your expenses via the app. The client would then share that information, which would then be processed by your bookkeeper and imported into your core accounting software, whether that be Xero, QBO, or a desktop software, if possible. Those core platforms would be linked with your client's bank account or with the client bank account, and that information would be processed. It goes in the financial reports, the invoices, the dashboards, all of the information would be processed in QBO and Xero. A client could also use a third-party payroll application if they did not want to use one within the core stack. One of the benefits of third-party payroll, like Payworks or a tool like WagePoint, is one that we often recommend, is that it takes care of things like the monthly source deduction tax filings that are withheld from employee paychecks. It takes care of things like ROEs and T4s and takes a great deal of burden and stress off of the operator of the business. So we highly recommend these tools. They work well with QBO and Xero and automatically import. There is ability to manually import them into desktop software as well. But we are finding that these integrations with the cloud software really sort of takes the pressure off of the sharing of documentation. We want our clients to be able to focus on producing seafood and delivering it to our local communities and economies. We want you to be thinking about entrepreneurship, how to move your business forward. We want to be able to take that heavy lifting of the financial record keeping off of your backs and let the software do that work. So this is why we think that kind of collaboration with an accountant and these software stacks work so well with the aquaculture client base. It lets you focus on what you do well and lets us assist you in providing the kind of financial records and reporting that you need to interact with the Canada Revenue Agency and any lenders and to make the kinds of decisions you need to. So another tool we use on top of that stack is Spotlight reporting. This is not necessary. QBO, Xero, QuickBooks Desktop, or Sage all produce fully functional financial reporting. But if there's additional reporting that is required, we can also export these things out into Spotlight, which does advanced reporting and does some benchmarking. So you can actually benchmark how your business is doing with others in your industry, which can be incredibly useful when seeking things like investment. And these are tools that you can use if and when you want to use them. And a good CPA or bookkeeping professional will be able to find these kinds of tools to help you move forward and present your business in the best light. Again, these kind of financial records are not just about filing taxes. They're about telling the story of your business, telling the story of growth and the kinds of products that you're producing and what the market is interested in and how well you're performing against it.
Good information.
So again, I want to talk about those ways in which online tools interact E-commerce and online hosting tools are really important. We often find that people need to be able to accept payments. So point of sale, talking about Shopify or Dext Commerce are often key tools. You want to perhaps be able to accept payments for PayPal or Square if you're selling at the dock or at a festival or a conference of some kind. You want to make sure that you have current apps to keep your business running smoothly. You want them to be integrated with your core accounting software and have your sales records working well. So if part of your business plan is thinking about e-commerce or a sales platform, perhaps a brick and mortar store, how is that point of sale going to be recorded and easily translated into the software that you're choosing? And I think this is really important to think about from the get-go. How are you going to work on your sales? For the very reason that it can dictate the kind of tool that you're going to use as your core accounting platform. That's Sage 50 or QuickBooks Desktop versus a cloud tool that can speak to a Square directly or to have a PayPal linked up directly. These are really important aspects in choosing a good business system and a software to operate it through. So one of the things we're really excited about in collaboration with the SBA is this innovation plan. And one of the tools we think is highly valuable to you is this innovation plan canvas. So I think when you're working on your innovation plan and you're looking at your business systems box, identify each of the areas that your business that you need to track. Think about that target market, the kinds of distribution, the kinds of sales system that you're going to use, and the product development and production. Good accounting software can track things like SR&ED, kinds of inputs that you required for development farming. It can help you with agri-stability or other reporting requirements you need. Think about the kinds of areas in which you're going to need good solid reporting and good solid data and who you might need to be reporting to. Think about funding. Think about market research. What do you need to track? These are some key elements that can help you explain to your accounting professional the kinds of questions you need your financial reports to answer. Think about what you're going to care about. Think about the kinds of regulations you may be responsible to. Is there specialized kinds of taxes? Are there particular reporting bodies, numbers of catch, things that you will need to think about and be able to track? If you build your business system and you choose a software that can track these items for you, then these don't need to be burdensome. These are all really important considerations. And this innovation plan, as Deb suggests, can be a really good platform to having that discussion with your accounting professional or CPA. A lot of the questions they're going to ask are going to be answered from the data that you place on this form.
Yeah, no, great, Stacey. Stacey mentioned the SRED program. That's the Scientific Research and Experimental Development Program that Revenue Canada has. So that's where companies might be working on new product development, new process development, and they can apply for a tax credit. But everything has to be tracked. In webinar 3, Norcha was talking about funding and how the importance of tracking all your expenses and all your activities so that you can claim your expenses for the funding program that you were successful for. If you haven't tracked it, you're not going to be able to get that money. And even regulations, if you're tracking, let's say, your inventory and you have a recall, let's hope this doesn't happen to anybody, but your business system software is going to help you determine where your product has been distributed to and what the extent of the recall is. So everything is interrelated. So Stacey is going to advance to the next slide, and we've given an idea of what you could put in your business systems box on the innovation plan canvas. This is just a suggestion or an example of what you might want to put in there, keeping in mind, as we've said throughout the series, that it's a living document and it's going to change. As you learn more, you're going to learn that maybe this isn't what you need to do. You need to change it to something else. And the beauty of technology is you can just create another document and update it and still keep the original information if that's what you want to do. Like I say, this is an example of what could go in the box in the at the beginning after watching this webinar, and then as you move forward, you might decide to change it or do something different. But this has been great. So people watching, what you can do as a next step is keep working on your innovation plan canvas. Think about the business systems that you might want to use. And I was thinking as Stacey was talking, it's funny, I like numbers and I like tracking things, but I'm not really very fond of accounting. And I have a friend who is, she's a CPA and I work with her all the time. And, she helps me with my business. But, it's not don't get overwhelmed. There are supports out there for you. And you don't have to start with the biggest system first. You can start small. But the idea is, and correct me if I'm wrong, Stacey, the idea is to know what the future holds. Like you may want to do this in the future, and you need this foundation, as Stacey said, right at the start. You know that this is what you want to get to. You want to have 10 employees eventually, and you know that you're going to have to track their payments, and you know you have monthly reports, and you have all these things, so you know upfront. Watch the rest of the webinars. You can watch them in any order you want, whatever interests you. You can fast forward them. You can watch them again. This is information for you to use to help you move to the next step. Great presentation, Stacey. That was really good. I think it's so cool that we, got to know each other in communications at Royal Roads, and here we are several years later, you working for MNP and me working for VIU, and working together on something that is near and dear to our hearts, right?
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah, coming to it from a different angle. So you were an expert for the Seafood Business Accelerator program, the pilot program that we had. And you provided a presentation to our participants that was, very well received. And you've been very complimentary of what we're trying to do and the tools that we're trying to provide. But, do you have anything to add?
I think I would definitely concur that business systems don't need to be daunting. I don't think that financial record keeping should be considered something that's painful or something to be fearful about. I really think it's about changing the perspective. I think it's about thinking about it in terms of a story. I often have people say, Stacey, oh my goodness, you're such a creative person. I can't imagine you working in accounting. That sounds so dull. But I actually think it's the exact opposite. What could be more exciting than helping creative and entrepreneurial people build a business plan that participates directly in our communities and our local economies? These things are exciting. And if you think about your financial records and your reporting as being the story that you're telling about the participation of yourself and your product and your industry in the communities where you live, they're part and parcel of how you operate your business and are creative about the ways that you work in your communities and create profit for yourself, your family, and your community. I think that you can change the perspective of how you see them. You can read those things as a story of yourself, your success, your products, your growth, how you scaled from an initial idea into a viable product that's participating widely in the local economy. If you think about it in those terms, the work that it takes to track your inputs and your exports isn't as daunting. It doesn't need to be an onerous or tedious task. It's a part of your ability to communicate what you've done, the kind of products you're creating, and your role as a business person in the world that we live.
Wow. That was amazing. No, that was amazing. Okay. What a great great wrap up. And you are so correct. You are so correct. Well said.